this man is crazy, and I mean really crazy. He goes by the name Paul and he's a taxi driver. But then one day, Paul decides to start a church. So he founded the Good News International Church, and then in an attempt to grow the church, Paul told his first set of members that he has a gift that allows him to speak to God directly. And his members began to spread the news, and from there, Paul's church began to grow. He was having new members in his church almost every week, and over time, he had members attending his church from all over East Africa. Paul's church followers increased beyond his expectation that he had to build an even bigger church that can accommodate all his members. He even opened his own TV station to broadcast his sermons, and before you know what was happening, Paul became one of the biggest pastors in East Africa. He had a lot of influence, and his followers saw him as God's right-hand man. And everything was going well for him. However, over time, Paul's teaching began to change. He was now preaching mostly about the coming apocalypse and how those who don't listen to exactly what he says will die. Paul told his followers that education and sport were demonic tools, and that even the national identification number, which the government was issuing at that time, was the mark of the beast, and told his members not to obtain it. And the funny thing, Paul members actually followed all these teachings and did exactly as Paul said, and they kept on doing all this until one day. On that day, the police got a report that Paul was preventing some of his members and their kids who were living inside his church with him from going to the hospital, despite some of them being sick, because he believes that the hospital is of the devil. At this point, the government already had enough of Paul's craziness. So the authorities raided Paul's church and rescued a whole lot of people from there, including kids. Then they shut down the church, shut down his TV station, and Paul was charged to court, but somehow he got released. After Paul's release, he sold off the remaining properties he had left, such as his cars, and then he relocated to another community. And just like that, no one heard anything again from Paul or his church. He literally disappeared. However, 4 years after Paul's relocation to this new community, some of the community members noticed that people were going missing from the community. And the report then was that most of them were going into this particular forest, aka the Shakaola forest. And when they go in there, they would never come out again. Another man also reported to the police that his wife, who is an air hostess, quit her job, sold off her properties, took their son, and then went to the forest also. So the police began investigating, and when they raided the Shakaola forest, they discovered that after Paul's arrival to this community 4 years ago, he went into that forest since it was a deserted land, and then he started his church again. But this time, he took his craziness to the next level. He told his followers to resign from their jobs, burn whatever educational certificates they have, sell off their properties, hand over the proceeds to him, and then they should come to the forest. When they arrived at the forest, Paul told them that if they want to see Jesus, they would have to fast till they drop dead. And these members began fasting. At this point, I don't even know if he mind controlled them into doing something like this, because Paul himself wasn't partaking in this death fasting that he told his members to partake in. Anyways, when the authorities came into the forest, they met some of the people who were still fasting, and these people were beyond lean. And the crazy part is, when they were offered food, they refused to eat it because they really wanted to see Jesus and they didn't want to break the fast. Eventually, they were all rescued, and after thorough examination of the forest, the police found over 400 corpses that had died from the so-called fasting. And out of this 400 corpses, 191 were kids. So this was how Paul was arrested. He was charged with the murder of 400 people. His trial started on the 7th of March 2024, and it is still ongoing. I hope this time he doesn't get released as he was released the last time. Anyways, this all happened in Kenya. I'm Caleb, and I've uncovered this case.